Hello, dear friends. I am Dr. Mukesh Pareek, and I am back with a very beautiful, interesting, and knowledge-worthy quiz for all of you. It is based on Virginia Woolf, her life, her important works, and you will find the quiz very, very interesting if you watch this video, if you listen to this video completely. Now let us move to our first question. Virginia Woolf is a familiar name to the English readers. What was her birth name? Why? I could have given you a PDF of that, but why I'm reading it out so that you people can listen to it carefully, and meanwhile I'll be giving you some important informations. I've already given you the answer. It is A, that is Adeline Virginia Stephen. Virginia Woolf's father was Sir Leslie Stephen. As you understand that there is an appellation Sir in front of the name. It means he belonged to, that important designation were given to him. He was a versatile scholar, eminent Victorian intellectual, and he was also the editor of the Dictionary of National Biography. So, friends, this is very important. As a question, that her birth name was Adeline Virginia Stephen. Second question. Virginia Woolf was the daughter of Sir Leslie Stephen, that we already know now. She had an odd nickname as a young child. What was it? Don't think that they can't ask you these kind of questions, because after a great survey and research, I have collected these questions. So she had a habit of, giving names, and because it was a large family, Sir Leslie Stephen married twice, so the house was filled with children. So Virginia Woolf was very creative also. So answer I already have given that, she was given the nickname the Goat because of her mischievousness. There were a large number of children in the household of Sir Leslie Stephen. In her childhood, Woolf got the nickname of the Goat. Whatever may have been the reason for it, it doesn't sound altogether flattering. Next slide. Third question. Virginia Woolf had a pet dog. What was the name of the dog? I've already given you the answer. Hans. It had a very bad habit of falling asleep at parties. Moreover, it was prone to illness. Why I have chosen this question? Because as you all know that we are students of literature, and in 2003 or 4, I don't exactly remember the date, but Coetzee was given the Nobel Prize, and that prize was given because of the sensitiveness he had shown in his novels regarding the deaf and dumb people and the animals. So I just want to show you that Virginia Woolf, that modernist writer, famous for her many novels like Waves and all the other novels like Mrs. Dalloway, and for the short stories and A Room of One's Own, Three Guineas. So without reading her books, her essays, her stories, her novels, we cannot pass our post-graduation. That writer was highly sensitive person. And you can understand that the dog had a habit of falling asleep at parties and was mostly ill, but still Virginia Woolf loved that dog Hans. So it shows that she was a creative person. Fourth question. Virginia Woolf thought of committing suicide many times. I would like to tell you that these sensitive people, they mostly suffer from an existential angst, an existential dilemma. And you all know that she had bouts of fits of depression. She was living dual personality, because as you know that Virginia Woolf was a married woman, but she had homosexual inclinations also. So we can understand that she must have had fits and her own doldrums and phases, blue phases we call them in English. So the question is that how did Woolf try to commit suicide when she was 22? So the answer is already that by jumping from a window. However, it was an abortive attempt. She did not succeed because the window was not that high. Some believe she developed mental illness because of her family environment. And let me disclose it now that Virginia Woolf's half-brother committed rape when she was a child. So that I'll be, talking about in the coming questions. But that you can understand that she was highly sensitive in the sense that she must have had some tough times. Let's move to the fifth question. Where did Virginia Woolf obtain her high schooling? Friends, as you all know that the right to education in universities was given very late to the women in the suffragette, after the suffragette movement, after the feminism was materialized in England. And only the rich people, the girls from the rich families had access to university education. But if you read that A Room of One's Own, where Virginia Woolf is talking about the lack of schooling and university education. But this question is important, that from where that kind of great writer obtained her high schooling. The answer is, at home she was homeschooled. She received a broad education. As you all know that the library of that family, Sir Leslie Stephen, her father, was already a very learned person, mainly from her father and to some extent during vacations from her brother. She also had the unrestricted use of father's extensive library. Why I'm saying unrestricted? Because mostly it happens even when I restrict my own daughters to go in my library without my permission. So, but sometimes it happens, like if you are aware about Thomas Hardy, if you are aware about Browning, these people had extensive libraries and they got knowledge from their father's libraries. She proceeded to King's College. This is very important information. London, where she followed course in Latin, Greek, German, and history. Though I'm, reading out a quiz for you, but in between I'll be talking about that if you get chance in your life to improve your, your culpability to more knowledge. I motivate you to learn some part of Latin, or say take some summer course in Greek or in Sanskrit or any other world language, even in French, so that you can get some access to the foreign languages, because the complete knowledge of English is not complete until you have certain other European languages in your lap. That is a suggestion. Don't take me the wise. Sixth question. Virginia Woolf was sexually abused over a period of several years in childhood. Who abused her? So, as I already have told you, I've already disclosed it, that it was her half-brother. The answer is her half-brother. James King, the biographer of Virginia Woolf, another important information for you, and Lee Marsh, the researcher, state that Virginia Woolf was a victim of sexual abuse in her childhood by her much older half-brother, who was the sons of her mother by her first marriage, George and Gerald Duckworth. And so I don't want to read more, but you can understand. But in the next line, I have another important information, that George Duckworth also abused her sister Vanessa. Vanessa, was a very great painter. And To the Lighthouse, if you have read this novel, there comes the Lily Briscoe. That character in that novel is inspired by her sister Vanessa. She was also the member of the Bloomsbury group. So let us move to the next question. 7 number. Virginia Woolf was always haunted by a desire to kill herself. That I have already informed you that, friends, the novels she has written, almost all the novels have the problem of existentialism. Existentialism is a branch of philosophy. I have already made a video on that. You must watch it. I will give you the link of that video in the, along with this video. You will come to know that that was the period when World War already had happened, when Virginia Woolf was writing, and modernism, the Great Depression, these things were all around them. So there was a highly sensitive person like Virginia Woolf, and the rape, which was committed to her, the physical assault, all these things made her, an oversensitive person, and she had haunted by a desire to kill herself. What was the name of the river in which she ultimately drowned? And these are some of the names of the rivers, friends, but the answer is Ouse. She committed suicide in 1941 by drowning herself in the river Ouse near Lewes, East Sussex, England. She was 59 at the time. Obviously, this was the Sussex Ouse, not to be confused with the better known Yorkshire Ouse or the Great Ouse in eastern England. There are other rivers also whose names are Ouse, but you should be aware about that. In Sussex, East Sussex, where she had her residence with her husband, there she committed suicide. Question number 8. Virginia Woolf penned altogether 9 novels. In the question there is another information for you. What was the title of the first one? Again, an important question. These are the 4 novels: The Voyage Out, Mrs. Dalloway, To the Lighthouse, The Waves. The Waves is considered to be her most philosophical novel and the most poetical one also. And answer is The Voyage Out. Virginia Woolf was a prolific writer. Prolific means one who wrote so many things. If you go to Google and find, the works created by her, you will be surprised that, she was highly prolific writer. Letters, entries, editing newspaper, running, printing press, and stories, non-fiction essays, so many things she wrote. She wrote in 9 novels and a number of essays. She was an exponent of the stream of consciousness technique. What is stream of consciousness? Stream of consciousness is the result, of psychoanalysis, which was a new thing happened, after the Sigmund Freud's books published in 1901. And almost all the writers, they paid more attention on what was going on in the mind. Mind moves in present and future altogether. Though physically we are always in present, but mind moves in all the 3 times. So stream of consciousness is a technique in which the writer shows us different times, while suppose she's talking, a character is talking to a character in the novel in present, but whatever she's thinking in her mind is also written. So it becomes a bit tough for a person to understand that, whether the written words on the pages are spoken by her or thought by her. So, and the problem of the tense also occurs, because when stream means a river, consciousness means, your controlled mind, So, her first novel entitled The Voyage Out was published in 1915. However, the novel was originally entitled Malimbrosia. This is another question which is very important. It was published by Gerald Duckworth and Company Limited. These days they have started asking us the publishers also of the major novels. So I have given this name here. Next question. Who is afraid of Virginia Woolf? This is the name of a very famous drama written by Albee, Edward Albee, an American writer. Was the famous drama in 1960. Who wrote it? I have already given you the answer. The answer is Edward Albee, and you will be surprised that only the title has this name Virginia Woolf, but as such there is no Virginia Woolf present. Actually, this title itself has been taken from a song, but it has connotations, friends, that Virginia Woolf earned for herself a big name, larger than life, and so somewhere there is a link, it's a parody. The drama is a parody. This drama is about, a middle-aged professor and his wife, and who humiliate, by playing games in the family verbally. And, so this is all about, again, an existential drama. But you should be aware about this at least, I wanted to impart you this knowledge that there is a drama, Who is Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which is an American drama. Virginia Woolf was an English writer. This drama was written in the next part of the 20th century, whereas Virginia Woolf, wrote, lived her life, and died in the first half of the century. Okay, so let's move to the 10th question. Woolf had a close association with one of the most renowned literary and intellectual groups of her time. Which was it? I have already talked about that, She belonged to the Bloomsbury Group. Friends, Bloomsbury Group, also known as the Bloomsbury Set, was an elite group of prominent liberal and left-wing writers. You may ask me a question like, who was or who are left-wing writers? Actually, the writers who are not satisfied with the government, those who are always ever inquisitive, asking questions, making people alert. The word has come from French Revolution, where the opponents of the king used to sit in the left side of the the court, where king used to sit. So from there the word dissenters, the word has come, left-wing writers. So we have Orwell, who's also a left-wing writer. These writers, who question the authorities mostly, So the Bloomsbury Set or Bloomsbury Group had left-wing writers, philosophers, economists, artists, critics and this group, had its meetings from 1907 to 1914. It was established by Virginia Woolf's brother Toby and his Cambridge friends. The members used to meet in the Bloomsbury area of London to discuss issues relating to philosophy, art, society, etc. It was not a school of any thought. Why I'm saying it is school of a thought? School of any thought mean to say like metaphysical school of thought we have. So they did not make certain rules and regulations, but they simply used to meet together weekly, monthly, and then because the district's name was Bloomsbury, so the name happened. It was open to almost all the intellectual issues of the time. Virginia Woolf was a co-founder and an influential member of the group. They propounded means they spread the idea of art for art's sake. This is very important. I have already made a video on aestheticism and art for art's sake. I'll give a link after this video in the description. You should also watch that, to improve your knowledge. Let's move to the next question. Question number 11. Mr. Bennet and Mrs. Brown is Woolf's treatise on. Treatise means book. It's on modern fiction. This is again a very important information. Mr. Bennet and Mrs. Brown is a fiction, modern fiction treatise. It's a non-fiction work. It's an essay actually, and the writer is discussing, the major happenings in the modern age about fiction. As you all know that there came many changes in writing the fiction. It altogether came from the realism to naturalism, and then from naturalism to a stream of consciousness, and all the other techniques were used. Existential angst and existentialism were also used. So this work is very important. 12th question. With the royalties means the money earned by selling books from Mrs. Delavey, one of the author's proud purchases means the question says that when Mrs. Delavey was a successful novel, it sold well. What did Virginia Woolf did with the money? So she purchased 2 new toilets and a bathroom. The question seems to be ridiculous, but it is very important that this question gives us an insight into the basic necessities and the kind of luxury and the paradox and the ironies of a personality, that though they were left-wing writers, but they required some luxury in their life. Look at 2 new toilets and bathroom. We Indian students have almost the same meaning for toilets and bathroom, but actually toilet is a kind of dress where dress means not the dressing room. We don't say dressing room in English, we say toilet where they get ready, and bathroom there where they take bath. So the next question, Virginia Woolf's 1933 biography Flush is about. So you will be surprised that this biography was about Elizabeth Barrett Browning's Dark. Friends, you know that Elizabeth Barrett Browning was more successful than Thomas Browning, and when they married, they had a very successful marriage, successful in the sense that it was very famous, in one of the famous love stories of these 2 writers. And the dog is also very famous in literature. So she wrote about Flush. The time stops me in talking about more about this dog, and it's about the biography Flush. So let's move to the next question. 2 key texts that are major contributions to feminist theory are a room of one's own. Friends, I will make another video for a room of one's own, where a room is a metaphor, where the writer talks about that a woman in the modern age should have her own earning, her own identity if she wants to be a writer. Otherwise, people will not take her seriously. Okay, so the question is that what was the next or other feminist text? And friend, it was 3 guineas. Again, it is about money. So you want to have your say in society, you want to have power, you should have your own space and your own money. 15th question. The fantastic biography, Orlando. Friends, we had a question on Orlando in net few years back. So Orlando is the name she has given to her lover, Vita Sackville West. This question has also appeared in exam. And you all know that, Christina Rossetti is not the answer, because Christina Rossetti was a writer in Victorian age. Vanessa Bell was sister. So the question is like Orlando, because Orlando is an important novel from many different angles, because in Orlando the writer has shown to us the whole literary history of English literature history from Elizabethan age till the modern age, up to Victorian age, I think, and that hermaphrodite character, which has the qualities of male as well as female. So that as you all know, I have already told you that Virginia Woolf had homosexual leanings. So her lover was Vita Sackville West, and this character she wrote on that. Friends, I would also like to talk about how open-minded relationship Virginia Woolf had, because her husband Mr. Woolf used to take Virginia Woolf to have meeting with Vita Sackville West in her great grand palace-like home. So this is all about Orlando, which is a very famous novel now. Next question. The title of 2 collections of essays. The Common Reader. Common Reader has 2 collections, friends. That's why I have written 2 collections. Go and Google and then search and make your notes, which is very important. They may ask you a question. It's taken from which author and which work? So the answer is Samuel Johnson's. As you all know that Dr. Samuel Johnson wrote a book, Lives of Poets, in which there were 52 poets included, and Thomas Gray. I think the spelling of Gray is wrong here. It should be Gray here. I'm sorry for that printing mistake. We call it printers devils when certain printing errors occur, despite our every caution. So Thomas Gray, when at the end of this biography of Thomas Gray, writer talks about common reader, and he says that a common reader is one who is not searching anything philosophical in the writing. I have already uploaded that on my Facebook page, English Cosmos Literature. Those who are interested in reading about the common reader and Thomas Gray's detail about Lives of Poets written by Dr. Samuel Johnson, they can go to my Facebook page, English Cosmos Literature. Next question. Hogarth Press, set up by Virginia Woolf and her husband, did not publish which of these authors? Friends, this is a very important question. As such, Hogarth Press itself is an important question. Second thing, that it was published by, it was established by Woolfs. So the answer is Charles Darwin. You know that T.S. Eliot was published by Hogarth Press, though he himself published James Joyce. So it's again very important. Sigmund Freud they published, Dostoevsky's works they published, but they did not publish Charles Darwin. You can have a hint here, because Charles Darwin's books were published in Victorian age in 1859. His famous book, selection of Origin of Species. So that book was published in 1859. So how can Virginia Woolf publish that book? So the answer is Charles Darwin. Next question. Woolf liked to give animal aliases to people. Animal aliases means nicknames of animals to people. Her husband was Mongoose. Mongoose means one knows an enemy of snake. And her sister Vanessa was a dolphin. What was she? She was goat. I have repeated this question in some other way. 19th question. What famous American poet was Virginia's godfather? So some of you who are highly intelligent, those who are preparing for JRF, will curse me that I have written or I have prepared, a quiz of less important questions. But you will really clap for me when you see this question. Friends, James Russell Lowell was a famous writer, fireside poets we call him. You can go and Google this. I have also written, I have published, some material on this also on my Facebook page, English Cosmos Literature. And James Russell Lowell was a friend of Sir Leslie Stephen, father of Virginia Woolf, and then he declared that James Russell Lowell will be Virginia Woolf's godfather. Godfather is a phenomenon which is mostly happen in England, English culture, because we in India don't have a concept of godfather. But you can understand godfather means to say someone who gives some guardian-like, guardian-like attention, suggestions, or you can have inspiration from that, or someone who helps you in publishing and all. 20th question, the last but not the least. What did art critic Roger Fry? Friends, as I've already told you that in Bloomsbury Group there were critics, philosophers, economists, artists. So this Roger Fry was one of the critics, one of the members in the Bloomsbury Group, doing 1910 that caused a major scandal in London. Again, you will clap for this question because this is something very important. Friends, he organized an art exhibition of post-impressionist painters. I have prepared a video on literary modernism. There are 2 videos. I'll give you a link with this video. You should watch these 2 videos where you will come to know about impressionistic paintings. And 1910 is important because this painting is the exhibition is considered to be a kind of official manifesto harbingering or says declaring the starting of modernism. Because modernism means something away from past tradition, where people look from a very different and contemporary angle. So modernity also means like artists, fashion designers, artists are as that impressionistic is a technique in painting. It was also used in written material in novels also. But you should be aware about this post-impressionistic painting. That exhibition he organized, Roger Fry, and it was the most scandalous part. Why scandal? Because as I told you that when you are modern, when suppose somebody shows his or her cleavage, we say that is a modern one. So modern, though T.S. Eliot's definition of modern is quite different, but mostly the common definition of modern means you are breaking away from the shackles of past, restrictions and codes of conducts of morality particularly. So there must have been something, nude paintings displayed. That's why it was scandalous. So friends, it was a quiz of 20 questions. Kindly write comments if you find this quiz important. That's it. Thank you very much.